What do I believe in? Is the question I'm called to answer. All of my time as an attendee of this church, from when I was baby Jesus in the holiday pageant to now, has led up to me answering this question virtually in front of all of you as a part of me being a senior and graduating from RE. Of course, there are some things I know I can believe in, such as how my body doesn't produce enough serotonin, or how no matter what, other people behave in ways I just can't understand. That is because of the fact that I'm neurodivergent in many ways. Because of this, I have a complex, convoluted relationship with my thoughts and feelings, resulting in this question being very hard to complete. For example, my autism spectrum disorder makes me have issues in completing free-form tasks such as this one, where I can take things in any way I'd like. I'll talk more about my conditions when they become relevant in this speech. Although some family members seem to think that nobody else really cares about my conditions, they shape how I see the world and act. Church has always been a part of my life, a network of supporting people. Rain or shine, whether I wanted to or not, I attended RE every week, every year since I've gone here. I've grown quite attached to teachers, assistants, and the like. I don't think I've ever gone a month without setting foot into the church building, at least before all of this. I've had church members babysit me since I've been young, and I've at minimum spoken to most of the people that have been here as long as me, something I can't say about most other places like my school. You all are a family to me, one I've known for most of my life, people I've regularly seen as long as I can remember. I've wrapped presents, filled up bags of food, helped pour concrete for a driveway, and more with the members of this church, and that's helped me immensely. It was at church that I learned the bulk of my social skills, things that come naturally to most but never came to me, leaving me to learn them through experience and trial and error. Because of this, the church community has been one of my main influences in terms of how I act, respond to others, and as a social behaviors. Because of this, I wish to thank you all quickly for aiding me with learning social skills. Another way you all help me out is by being a group of people I feel free to be myself with. An example of this was how church was the first place I started using my preferred name and pronouns well before I began anywhere outside of the church. Another example of the mutual bond I have with you all is that you are the only non-immediate family members to try to contact me while I was in the hospital for Christmas, which is a gesture I appreciate greatly. Back to my beliefs. The honest response at present is a simple, I'm not sure yet. My beliefs have been in constant state of flux throughout most of my life, changing as I age. I understand myself more, and as I get additional diagnoses. I started out being atheist, but within the past few years, I've changed to more polytheistic beliefs. I'm currently beginning to look into pagan beliefs more, although I can't claim to have figured anything out in terms of my belief structure. At least, I can say there's a few things I believe in for certain. That things will change, to keep going until they change again, and helping out others along the way.
For most of my life, my family and I never had a commitment to any one religion. Both of my parents grew up in Christian households, and most of my extended family is still Christian. I've grown up around those beliefs, but I've never fully identified with them. I've never really believed in a big white man in the sky, but I know I believe in something. As I grew up, I spent a lot of time in nature. We live near the seminary woods and the lake, and I spent countless hours of my childhood gardening with my mom, making mud pies, canoeing, going to botanical gardens, catching and releasing fish, spending time at the lake, climbing trees, and taking lots of walks in the woods. I've had a lot of opportunities to travel as well, which I'm extremely grateful for. And every time that I do, I find the most peace and the most memories in nature. From hiking up a mountain in Greece or Scotland, to rafting on a river in Colorado or Alaska, to watching starfish scuttle across the seafloor in Samos, to watching grain wave in the wind in England. Nature is where my heart is happy. I feel so at home there that I'm planning on going into environmental science. I found that spending time in nature is one of the most spiritual experiences for me. Connecting with the earth is powerful beyond words, and those experiences were the beginning of my spiritual journey. While growing up, I was very shy. I barely even talked to my aunts and uncles at Christmas. As I grew and made friends, I opened up a lot and started showing my silly self. But when I decided to go to a school far from home without any of my close friends, some of my old shy self came back. I ate lunch alone on the first day of school. The next day, I sat with some older kids I had known for pretty much my whole life. They let me sit with them, but didn't talk to me much, and I for sure was not going to talk to them. I kept silently moving down the table and farther away from the people I used to know. During this time, I decided to try going to youth group here. To my surprise, about half of the people sitting on the couches downstairs as I walked in were the same people who sat at that lunch table. Needless to say, I was uncomfortable. I was terrified of embarrassing myself in front of those older kids who I already thought judged me every day. I didn't go back to youth group for 2 years. At school, I eventually moved all the way to the end of the table. One day, I happened to wear a Beatles shirt, and one of the upperclassmen at the table on the other side of me noticed and said, "Hey, do you like the Beatles too?" And we started talking about how both of our dads are utterly obsessed with the band. That day, I came home so excited, talking my mom's ear off about my new friends. From that point on, I sat with that group and we became friends. The next semester, a girl I knew from a couple of my classes switched lunch hours and started to sit at our table. That girl is now my best friend. I finally had a place to belong, with people who accept me. I continued to grow and learn how to be comfortable with myself. Through things like First Stage Summer Academy, youth group, and last year's service trip, I gained confidence and realized that just being myself is good enough. In my first years of high school, I kept a journal almost every day on my phone. Whenever people would wave to me or say hi in the hallways, or just any positive interaction I had, I would write it down. Sometime in junior year, I realized I wasn't writing very much in it anymore. Recently, I realized why. I didn't need to. I had found places where I belonged, and true friends who let me be myself. I've become the people I always looked up to. On the Wednesday before quarantine, I went on a theater field trip to the Rep. None of my really good friends were going, but I had finally gotten a part in the spring play, and most of the cast was going. I was a little late to the bus and was worried I wouldn't have anyone to sit by. Fortunately, a freshman in the play was sitting alone, so I asked if I could sit with her, and we rode together to and from the play. Later in rehearsal, she said to me before a scene, "Hey, thanks for sitting next to me on the bus." I responded with something like, "Oh, no problem," but inside I was so happy and touched. I had done the same thing that the upperclassmen who asked about my Beatles shirt did. I made someone feel not so alone, feel seen. That full circle experience is what I believe everything is all about. Many people helped me grow so that I could pass on the same kindness, whether I knew I was doing so or not. I believe there's a connection between everyone and everything. Me becoming the people I looked up to and helping someone feel special, that is the kind of thing I have to believe is fate. That is what God is to me. I believe everything is eternally linked, perfectly intertwined, and because of that, everyone and everything deserves love and kindness above all. And that is what I hope to continue to bring to the world. I want to make other people's lives better. I want to be the reason someone smiles. I want to make people feel comfortable in their own skin. I want to encourage others to live life to the fullest, whatever that is for them. I know what it's like to want to do something, but just be so worried about others' thoughts that you can't. So I want to keep working on my own confidence while helping others in the same way. In each of these experiences and places, at church, at First Age, in nature, with my friends, I felt so connected, present, and accepted. And that is God to me. Smiles, kindness, community, nature, connections. Those are what nurtures my spirit.
As one of my dear Unitarian Universalist friends, Bart Frost, said, "You weren't born into Unitarian Universalism, but you were a homegrown Unitarian Universalist." My name is Lana Walker, and this is the story of my journey from homegrown Unitarian Universalism to rooted, personalized Unitarian Universalism. In the summer of my freshman year, I attended Thrive, a camp for Unitarian Universalists of color. There, unbeknownst to me, I would start my spiritual journey. I learned about my Unitarian Universalist heritage as a youth of color, but also other forms of spiritual practices and sources coming from sources of color. I felt the most nourished and fulfilled by the African-based ancestral practice. At the time, I went, "Ooh, that felt good," and went on with my life. Time went by, and I wasn't getting the spiritual sustenance I needed because there wasn't really anyone in my life who encouraged me to find spiritual practices or sources to fill my heart and soul. I was lost in a beautiful religion. That is, until I was called into leadership. This was when Unitarian Universalism brought me the spiritual sustenance I needed, but also disappointed and brought me and other Unitarian Universalists of color generational pain that has been brought through time and untold stories that are just too similar. This was when my internal conflict began. How could a religion that brought me such great spiritual sustenance also fail me at the same time? I was angry and slowly feeling like Unitarian Universalism wasn't for me. So I sat back and meditated on what I really wanted and needed. In those many months of meditation, I came to two realizations. The first was that my ancestors are my God, my source of strength, and my wisdom. All those years ago at Thrive, I had missed what was supposed to be a spiritual journey, an awakening at Thrive. I've come to the belief that my ancestors had me in their mind's eye even before my parents did. What gives me strength is knowing that my ancestors' hopes and dreams sit with me. The second was that as much as Unitarian Universalism has failed me, I need it, and so will other marginalized youth. Octavia Butler once sagely said, "God is change." And if we are the liberal religion we claim to be, then we have to recognize this and make the change that is so needed. In truth, I came to three realizations. The third realization was that it had happened. I had been called to ministry. As much as I love to be able to give myself spiritual sustenance, I also want and dream to be able to give others the spiritual sustenance they so greatly deserve and need. One of my favorite quotes that's been sticking to me lately from Adelaide Ann Proctor is, "Dreams grow holy when put into action." I hope one day to be able to make my dreams grow holy like this congregation has taught me to do. Thank you for the time, talent, and songs that will send me on my journey to the future.